Same old, same old. On a dark December morning in 1992, a few days before Christmas, a tall, lanky man walked across Cornell University's Thurston Avenue Bridge. It was windy, and he tightened the scarf around his neck and pulled his cap down on his forehead. The campus had emptied out as students returned home for the holiday, but Peter Thornhill was not among them. His parents' bickering had reached a new level of unpleasantness, and he preferred to stay put. Peter knew his mother was not happy. Her son had come home for Christmas for the last 3 years, but this year he chose to avoid the stress that moved like a live current from room to room in his family's sprawling house. He was looking forward to 2 quiet weeks where he could sleep in and work on his term project. His only regret was that his girlfriend Alex was not around. Unlike him, she was happy to spend Christmas with her parents. However, it was a bit of an exaggeration to say that she was his girlfriend. Peter knew he wasn't the only one in her life. Yet he felt a pang of jealousy as he imagined her going out and partying in Washington, D.C., while he was alone under Ithaca's frozen gray skies. Peter stopped midway on the bridge and leaned against the railing. He stared at the gorge below, the banks thick with trees and foliage, the clear water racing down the rocky stream bed. But instead of seeing the chasm, his thoughts were about Alex, her slender body, shimmering blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and chiseled profile. And then the body sprawled on the rocks came into view, the head resting on the rocks, arms askew, the water swirling around the legs. Shocked, his breath quickened, and he felt the staccato beat of his heart. He couldn't believe his eyes. He blinked rapidly, hoping that the image would disappear. When it didn't, he hurried across the bridge to alert the campus police. The following day, Peter read a short article in the Ithaca Journal. Cornell's campus police have recovered a body from below the Thurston Avenue Bridge. The individual's name is being withheld pending notification of the family. Police do not suspect foul play. This is the 3rd gorge suicide this year, 2 others having occurred in February and May. 2 days later, the newspaper publicly identified the body as that of Raphael Simmons, an MBA student. When Peter looked at the photo, it occurred to him that he'd seen Alex talking to Raphael at the start of the school year. Was he just a friend or something more, he wondered. Did she know what happened? If not, should he let her know? He tried to concentrate on his project while fielding his mother's intermittent calls. Wouldn't he change his mind, she asked, before complaining about his father? No, he said. I've got too much work to do here. Sorry. On Christmas Day, his mother called again. Same complaints, same question, same response. After he hung up, he stared at the phone, again asking himself if he ought to call Alex, wish her a Merry Christmas. His phone rang. He wondered if it was his mother bothering him once more. He answered anyway. It was Alex. I was just getting ready to call you. It was stretching the truth only a little. Peter asked about her holiday. Just great. She was so happy to spend time with her parents and see her friends in D.C. And how was he doing, she had asked. Wasn't he lonely, far from his family? No, he assured her. Everything was fine. Except, of course, that he'd discovered a gorge suicide when walking across the Thurston Avenue Bridge. You were the one who found the body? Yup. She'd heard about the suicide from friends, but no one knew who had alerted the campus police. Raphael Simmons, I knew him. Oh, I didn't know that. Yes, we went out a couple of times back in September, but I stopped seeing him. Her voice had drifted off. Peter wasn't sure if he was supposed to ask why she'd stopped seeing Raphael. You did? That sounded pretty neutral and non-invasive to him. Yes, I felt we were not compatible. There was a finality to that phrase. Listen, she continued, I'm sure you're getting lots of work done, but wouldn't you like to celebrate just a little? Why don't you come down to DC for a few days? We have a spare guest room, and I'm sure my parents wouldn't mind. So how about it? Well, he hesitated. Come on, she laughed. Don't tell me you're going to work on New Year's Eve. Of course, maybe you've got plans already? Nothing I cannot change. Peter booked his flight to Washington, D.C., arranged his project notes, looked for clean clothes, and realized that he'd need to make a trip to the laundromat. It was a depressing space, moist, with an annoying fluorescent tube that blinked on and off. But he didn't care. He'd been dreaming about Alex at the moment he'd seen Raphael's body, and now he was going to spend New Year's Eve with her. A thought fleeted through his mind. Had Alex invited him to D.C. to learn more about what had happened? He banished it and began to imagine how the short holiday might turn out. Alex poured a cup of coffee. Her mother kept the coffee maker on permanently and took it into the living room. She sat on the sofa, gazing at the Christmas tree. She and her parents had decorated it together, as they had since her childhood. The jewel-colored ornaments, they added one or two to their collection each year, glittered in a shaft of sunlight. Raphael Simmons. While she couldn't say she was glad he was dead, she was relieved that he was permanently out of her life. It had started out promisingly. A friend had introduced them. You're going to love Raphael, but watch out. He's a bad, bad boy. Alex hadn't worried about that at all. She had a weakness for bad boys and felt that she knew how to handle them. The relationships never lasted very long, but Alex was okay with that. She preferred to have a good time. She wasn't looking for any long-term commitment. In fact, no commitment at all. That probably added to her attractiveness, her I don't give a shit vibe. She remembered the last time she'd been with Raphael. It was a warm, bittersweet day in late September, a perfect day for lunch at a countryside inn. Raphael had ordered a bottle of wine. Alex made an effort to join him, but she was not much of a daytime drinker, and she managed only a few sips. At the end of the meal, the bottle was empty. Raphael's face was flushed, his eyes bright. "Oh shit, I forgot that I need to meet someone this afternoon," he muttered as they walked back to the car. Raphael put the car into gear and raced along the narrow country roads. At first, Alex savored the thrill, the countryside slipping by in a blur of green, yellow, and brown, but as he continued to pick up speed, she became apprehensive. "Raphael, slow down, please. It's dangerous to go this fast on these roads." He laughed and accelerated. "Raphael!" she screamed. They narrowly missed an oncoming car as Raphael came out of a curve in the road. The near miss sobered him. As he slowed down, he spat out a "fuck you, Alex." Alex stared straight ahead, waiting for the ordeal to end. They didn't talk for the rest of the way back to campus. Raphael was still angry. "You're a bag of bones, Alex. Do you know that?" he said as he dropped her off in front of her dorm. Those were the last words he uttered to her. She made a list in her mind, 2 columns, plus and minus. On the plus side, Raphael was stunningly handsome. He had it all: curly blonde hair, heavy-lidded dark brown, almost black eyes, a cleft chin, high cheekbones, full lips. A year ago, a woman from a modeling agency had picked him out of a crowd standing in line at the movies and gave him her card. That led to a booking to do an ad for men's perfume, and it amused Alex to see his face looking down from the billboards this year in time for Christmas. It was the only ad Raphael had done. He didn't need the money and soon lost interest in the whole idea. Another plus, and this is what Alex had found most attractive: he was at ease talking on almost any subject: history, politics, philosophy, the latest bestseller. Where did he find the time to read, she would ask herself, because, and this was a big minus, Raphael was a heavy drinker. The second time she'd been with him, they'd gone out to a bar, and as he drank, he'd become nasty and aggressive. He accused a man at the bar of flirting with Alex. While they were arguing, she walked out. The next day, he'd called to apologize. He was sorry. It wouldn't happen again, but it did. There was another minus, or maybe she needed a third column with a question mark. She'd only been to Raphael's apartment a few times, but on each occasion, someone came to the door with a package. It wasn't from DHL or FedEx, she could see that. The delivery men looked like the kind of young guys who hung around the bars where Raphael liked to drink. Under the question mark, she put the word drugs. 2 more question marks danced through her head. Alex felt that she dodged a bullet with Raphael's name engraved on it. It was one thing to have sex with an attractive, intelligent, sharp-tongued man, but getting pulled into the orbit of self-destruction and addiction to whatever was quite another. Peter Thornhill was different from Raphael. Not drop-dead good-looking, but attractive enough. More on an even keel, lacking Raphael's extreme mood swings. Peter was fun to talk with, intelligent and witty. But was he good in bed? She needed to find out. It was her holiday project. Alex found a note from the campus police when she returned to school after the Christmas break. They had asked around, and someone must have told them that Alex had been seen with Raphael. Was he dealing drugs, they asked? She didn't know. All she could say to them was that he was a heavy drinker. On her way out, she passed a woman who she'd seen on the campus and surmised that she was another one of Raphael's girlfriends. She later learned that the police had interviewed a total of 5 women. All of them denied knowing whether Raphael was selling drugs. The gossip on campus was that the results of an autopsy had shown both alcohol and cocaine in Raphael's system. Alex wondered about the mysterious deliveries to Raphael's apartment. Had the police found drugs in one of the packages? The question remained unanswered. She didn't want to discuss it with anyone. She moved from thinking about Raphael to questioning her own behavior. Maybe living on the edge wasn't such a good idea. She thought back to the Christmas break. Peter Thornhill might not have been the most exciting man alive, but they'd had fun together when he visited her, and he wasn't too bad in bed. They began to see a lot of each other when they returned for the spring semester, but they continued to live separately. Neither one wanted to rush into anything. Peter was considerate of her feelings. He never called her names or insulted her. And he would surprise her with a bouquet of flowers or an old copy of Vogue. He remembered her interest in fashion. Upon graduation, they moved to New York, where Alex got a job as a junior stylist and Peter enrolled in graduate school. They found a small, overpriced apartment in Greenwich Village, went to the theater, tried new restaurants, and strolled through Chinatown and Little Italy. In due course, they married and moved to Washington, D.C. He'd been offered a job with a firm that specialized in institutional advertising, and Alex set herself up as a stylist to the wives of diplomats and senior civil servants. Alex felt safe with Peter. There were no unpleasant surprises, no off-the-wall behavior. If she felt an occasional twinge of boredom at the lack of excitement, she focused her energy on her career. She was better off now, and she'd stick with it. Peter came home from work late one evening. His team was putting together a client presentation, and it had taken longer than expected. He tossed a copy of the Washington Post on the coffee table. "Did you see this?" he asked Alex. "No, I haven't had the time to read a newspaper in days. What is it?" "It's about that guy, Raphael Simmons, the one I saw lying in the gorge." Alex didn't want to be reminded of Raphael. She had closed that chapter of her life. But she asked, "What about him?" "The Senate is holding hearings on drug trafficking on college campuses, and his name came up. Apparently, he was the Cornell kingpin. Can you believe it? They even suspect that he may not have committed suicide. That's all news to me. I didn't know him very well. And anyway, that's all in the past. Alex went into the kitchen to heat up the food that she'd picked up on the way home. A wry smile crossed her face. Who would have thought that she'd wind up having such a calm, uneventful life, where the only excitement was professional? She couldn't imagine that one day in the future it would be Peter who would tire of the sameness of it all.